What's up guys, Game Wisdom here and welcome back to the white side of YouTube. And today I want to talk about Gaster's role in the deltarune story. And I know I already made this video, but since the new chapters released earlier this year, my thoughts on where Gaster fits into the story have changed significantly. So today I intend to explain my thoughts on Gaster post chapters 3 and 4. This video is going to be different than my usual content, as it's going to be an analysis of what the community has theorized about Gaster over the years. So you could consider this a late celebration of Undertale's 10th anniversary. Now we're going to start our journey by turning the clock back 10 years to September 15, 2015, when game developer Toby Fox released a small indie game called Undertale. Was immediately a massive hit, having multiple Let's Plays with millions of views and selling hundreds of thousands of copies within its first few months. With a fanbase this big, it was only a matter of time before its biggest secrets were uncovered, and it only took one line of dialogue to turn the community upside down. "Beware the man who speaks in hands" is one of the lines of dialogue that can be spoken by the river person while riding their boat, and line that stuck out like a sore thumb, as there wasn't any Undertale character that spoke in hands, so naturally they started to dig for clues in the game's files. And find clues they did. They discovered the fun value, a random number from 1 to 100 that is generated when you start the game and causes random events to happen, the most important of which were the 3G or Gaster followers. Through them, we learned about a secret Undertale character called Gaster, who was the royal scientist before Alphys and supposedly vanished a long time before the game's story. And soon after that, room_Gaster was found, a black screen that displays text in wingdings, a font that uses hands as letters, giving us a solid connection between Gaster and the man who speaks in hands. And the rest is history. Gaster became the most talked about part of the game. Pretty quickly theories about him popped up everywhere from YouTube to Reddit, and by 2018 Gaster was pretty much solved. Or so we thought. As on late October night, everything would change. Something would happen that would show us that we hadn't solved Gaster. In fact, we weren't even close. The real mystery had just begun. The release of Deltarune's first chapter shook the community quite a bit, especially the theorists, since there was a whole new game to theorize about, and Gaster seemed to be very important to its story. And it was at this moment when Gaster theories went from simple character analysis to grand conspiracies about this now interconnected universe, and the release of Deltarune's second chapter only added fuel to the fire with even more references to the man who speaks in hands. And many people were certain that Gaster was the big bad of the game, who was manipulating everything from behind the scenes, including myself. Yes, this was the time my video on Gaster's role in Deltarune's story came out. In that video I theorized that Gaster wanted the player to collect the shadow crystals that were pieces of you that were scattered across time and space and put them back together. At the time this theory made a lot of sense with the information we had, but then on June 4th, 2025, Deltarune's chapter 3 and 4 came out and validated everything I said on that video. After 4 long years of deranged shitposting, Deltarune's chapter 3 and 4 finally came out, and everyone was hyped. So was I, waiting patiently for the countdown to hit 0 so I could finally play this game that I had waited all these years for. And it was amazing. While I was having fun with the amazing story and engaging boss battles, there was this sinking feeling in the back of my head. Something was wrong. I just couldn't put my finger on it. And then, when watching that post-credit scene in the end of chapter 4, it hit me. Gaster was missing, not just in the new chapters, but the entire game. Then I realized something. This whole time we had been approaching Gaster wrong. That video was outdated from the moment it came out. At that moment, In the end of chapter 4, it finally all made sense. Gaster was never the main villain of Deltarune, but we were blinded by brain rot and confirmation bias and just couldn't see it. I know all of you are wondering, if Gaster isn't the game's main villain, then what is he? Well, the best way to answer this question is to go through the game and see what Gaster actually does in it. And don't worry, this will be very quick. First, he appears in the prologue to chapter 1 and helps us create a vessel, and then he gets interrupted and we don't see him again until the end of chapter 4. Now there are a few possible Gaster's appearances I didn't mention, like his brief cameo if you die to the night, but obviously that has never happened to me. And then there are a few theoretical Gaster appearances, like how he influenced the secret bosses or is the Eggman, so let's debunk them. For the first point, I don't need to search hard, as chapter 4 confirmed that it was the Knight who influenced the secret bosses, pretty definitively. As for the Eggman, reducing him to just Gaster does a big disservice to an incredibly unique and interesting character. So what is Gaster's role in all of this? Well, simply put, I don't think Gaster fits into the game's main plot. He's already busy trying to connect all his different characters and plot lines into one satisfying narrative. Adding Gaster into the equation risks derailing the narrative for the sake of fan service. To be clear, I'm not saying Gaster won't appear in the game. Toby has been teasing him for over 10 years now. I'm just saying that he isn't going to be part of the main story. Instead, he's part of his own side plot. All this time I had been trying to find how Gaster fits into the game story, when he was part of his own side story all along. I imagine most of you are a bit confused, so let me explain it in simple terms. Deltarune has two different stories happening at the same time. First, it's the main story. Let's call it the Roaring storyline, dealing with the fallout between the Dreamers and the Holidays and the Prophecy. The second storyline is the Gaster plot that happens between us, the players, and Gaster. So what is this Gaster story about? While we don't know for sure, the chapter 4 end credits scene gives us a pretty important clue. There are a few different ways to interpret this scene, but what we know is Gaster is searching for something. A lot of people assume that that something he's searching for is his Deltarune. But when I saw this cutscene for the first time, I interpreted it as Gaster referring to the player as his Deltarune, but I could be wrong. We simply don't have enough information to make any conclusions at the moment. But I have an idea of how this plot will go, and it has to do with PlayStation trophies. Most of you must be very confused, so let me explain. In order to get Deltarune on PlayStation, Toby had to add achievements, and most of them are very simple, like use an item or take damage, that sort of thing. However, if you manage to beat all 4 currently released chapters of Deltarune without getting any achievements, the chapter 4 end credit scene changes. So, what does this tell us about Gaster's plan? Well, at first Gaster seems shocked we didn't achieve any marks, as he says. But then his scientific curiosity kicks in and he becomes interested in seeing where all this goes. Now a lot of you are probably asking, how do you complete the game without getting any trophies if you get one for every chapter you complete? An excellent question, my potential viewer. To put it simply, the trophy description specifically says to complete the chapter without issue, and the only way to complete the chapter with issue is to find the Eggman's egg. How curious. Gaster considers the egg an issue. Egg, not too important, not too unimportant. This item description has been bothering me for years, and now I finally cracked the case. So here we go. I believe the egg isn't important because it doesn't do anything in the main plot, but not unimportant because it is the one thing that can stop Gaster. Unfortunately, there is one small problem with this theory. The cutscene that this theory is based on is exclusive to the PlayStation version of deltarune. However, I believe that this whole trophy thing is a hint from Toby for what we need to do in order to get the best outcome in the Gaster plotline. It's my theory that in order to get the best ending for the Gaster plotline, we'll have to get all the secret items like the eggs and the shadow crystals, making it a special secret that only the most dedicated players will get to see. Gaster's role in this massive story has been something that's been bothering me since I joined this community pretty much. A grand mystery that's built up so little and yet so much, and I could never quite understand how it would end. But I think after going through the new chapters and making this video, I have finally reached that conclusion, and it really lies in what Gaster is meant to represent and is inspired by. And that is the classic mysteries, like Yuboa from Yuminiki, a character that only ever briefly appeared as an Easter egg, never again. The reason why people love characters like Gaster and Yuboa so much is that they're mysterious and we can have endless theorizing potential. And I think Toby Fox, out of all people, knows that very well, which is why he has never mentioned Gaster ever publicly. And he's been so well hidden in the game to the point where for a long time you had to manipulate Undertale's code to even see him. Honestly, that's what has been bothering me with most Gaster theories, is that this idea, I guess, that Gaster will be the final boss and will get all the answers never sat right with me, even if it was what I predicted in that original video. Really, I think that this could never work, because for such a well put together mystery, I could never see a world where Toby just gives us all the answers in a golden platter. And even if he did, I don't know that a writer, even as good as Toby Fox, could write a character for Gaster, a story for him, that can live up to the crazy hype that's been building up these past 10 years. Something that will satisfy everyone. So, I want to leave you end this video with one message. And if you want to have a takeaway, then this will be it. When playing these games and theorize about Gaster, try to enjoy the journey and not just think about the end. Game Wisdom, signing out.